Who's for the game? The biggest that's played. The red crushing game of a fight. Who will grip and tackle the job unafraid, and who thinks he'd rather sit tight? Who'll toe the line for the signal to go, who'll give his country a hand? Who wants to turn himself into the show, and who wants his seat in the stand? Who knows it won't be a picnic, not much, yet eagerly shoulders a gun? Who will much rather come back with a crutch than lie low and be out of the fun? Come along, lads, but you'll come on all right, for there's only one course to pursue. Your country is up to her neck in a fight, and she's looking and calling for you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into our second presentation of learning. After a successful first POL, when you all joined us at St. Mary's Church in December, and because our school theatre space is unfortunately out of use, we are relieved that we can still share with you a virtual presentation of learning for a second expedition entitled Do Your Bit. On behalf of us all in G31, can I express thanks to all of you for tuning in this evening. We really do appreciate your support as we take this opportunity to present this term's learning from our human and art expedition, Do Your Bit. We also hope that you learned something new about World War I.
This expedition has the guiding question: why is it important to honour all those who made sacrifices in World War I? And by the end of this presentation, we hope that you will understand that there have been many unheard voices of World War I that we hope to honour tonight.
You have just heard Who's for the Game, a poem by Jessie Pope. Jessie Pope was a writer of numerous short stories, articles, and humorous verses. This patriotic piece of poetry was published in 1915 and is a call to arms intended to encourage young men to enlist in the British Army. At the time, enlisting was not compulsory. This poetry was both admired and condemned when it was published in a newspaper, but was widely read and passed from person to person.
During our drama sessions, we used propaganda images from the Great War to recreate a number of freeze frames which we performed with our poem. We intended to show how powerful propaganda was in persuading people during the war to end all wars.
Our expedition was split into 3 case studies: a call to arms, the call of the motherland, and the call home. We studied the causes of World War I and have explored Britain's empire by looking at historical world maps. This led us to developing map skills and an awareness of the world today, and also to understanding the contribution of men from across the world in what was a global conflict. The study of Indian soldiers during World War I included a presentation from an expert from London and led an in-depth study of the beliefs and teachings of the Sikh faith, including a fieldwork visit to the Gurdwara.
Alongside his case studies, our anchor text for the expedition was War Girls, which is a thought-provoking collection of short stories which explores the conditions of women and how the First World War changed and shaped their lives ever. The first story we read was from the book Storm in a Tea Shop, which was about a young girl who lived with her mother and a patriotic grandfather.
She took work in a cafe in London during World War I. She was too young to join up herself, but as this was a total war, which meant that her whole country was needed to do their bit in one way or another, she knew everyone had a part to play. Through her patriotism and awareness of the customers she served, she managed to foil the plans of German spies. The spies were using the tea shop as a meeting place. With her at first, unsuspecting, going between so that their message could be passed on.
Another impactful story from the book was Mother and Mrs. Everington, about Effie, a young girl blinded by patriotism and propaganda, who dismissed her brother's trauma as cowardice when he returned injured. After joining a suffragette group to run ambulances and a field hospital in France, Effie witnessed the devastation of war and saw patriotism as a disease affecting both sides. In a particularly bloody battle, she mocked the woman back home knitting for the troops, saying, "Whoever wins, we will have all lost." This story highlighted how misinformed the British public was about the horrors of war.
We also read the story Going Spare, which is how we learned that after World War I, due to the huge loss of young men in the conflict, there was a lot of unmarried women, leading to an increase in the number of spinsters. It's estimated that hundreds of thousands, if not millions of women worldwide were affected in this way.
This story wasn't about spinsters who stayed at home or became nannies or maids. Instead, it was about a young woman who became a journalist and a war correspondent during World War II. She reported on marches for spinsters' pensions and also on women protesting for rights to own property and to be able to vote. Despite the horrors of World War I, this story showed that the once unheard voices of women were now being recognised.
In addition to the stories in War Girls, we analysed various writings, including an extract from Birdsong by Sebastian Faulks, where we studied the effective imagery literary devices used to describe the first day of the Battle of the Somme. Our crew read was Private Peaceful by Michael Morpurgo, a poignant novel about a young soldier, Tom O'Peaceful, whose memories vividly depict the brutality of war and how great war stole the innocence of youth.
We read the full play White Poppies by Sue Sanders as part of our immersion before studying in depth in drama. The play tells us the story of Tom Headley, a young soldier who enlists in 1914, influenced by propaganda. During our drama sessions, we explored the relationships between the characters, using space, levels, movement, and voice to portray a community in turmoil and grief. As part of our presentation, we will perform scenes from the play.
You're about to see Act 1, Scene 2 from White Poppies. It is the present day and Jenny Clark has been given a new project to work on at school. This is the first time we met Jenny Clark, but her story is closely linked with that of the characters in 1914. She is about to find out some shocking truths.
Hi Sarah, how are you feeling? Drowning in tissues? Oh good, you'll be back on Monday then, just in time for the maths test. Oh, there was one thing.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi Mum. Yes, just Mum. What was I talking about again? Oh yeah, a project about the First World War. No, not the Blitz, idiot. The First World War. When the Titanic sank.
Nothing to do with Titanic.
Shut up, Will. Yes, well, we've got to find out what our families might have been doing in 1940. If they fought any battles or anything, so I thought you could start to think about it. Right, okay, see you on Monday.
That sounds interesting.
Have we got anything about great-granddads and grandmas and so on?
Probably, but I can't think of anything else other than a cup of tea right now.
Rightio.
In other immersion sessions in Human, we examined various sources to predict the upcoming expedition. We did a gallery walk where we analysed images, noted our observations and wonders, and made inferences based on prior knowledge. This activity led many of us to think the new expedition would focus on war, with some initially assuming we'd study World War II.
We studied maps of the British Empire and explored why Britain sought an empire, linking it to our earlier study of the Industrial Revolution when Britain was known as the workshop of the world. The British Empire spanned over 6 of the 7 continents, and nicknamed the empire where the sun never set because it was always daylight somewhere within it.
We also watched some short film clips associated with the Great War, some fiction and some that were actual footage from the battlefield. One thing in common with the clips we watched was the chaos and the destruction the war brought, but also the camaraderie among the soldiers who were demonstrating real bravery and supporting each other.
In our art immersion, we learned about observational drawing, tones, lines and shapes. We studied armed forces medals awarded to soldiers and discussed our notices and inferences based on their details. Afterward, we practice drawing World War I medals from photographs.
Our first case study, the Calls to Arms, explored how in 1914 Britain summoned civilians to fight for the Triple Entente, Britain, France and Russia, against the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary and Italy. The focus was on the causes of World War I and why people felt willing to sign up and possibly make the ultimate sacrifice.
The First World War, or the Great War, was sparked by the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austria-Hungary throne, by Gavrilo Princip on the 28th June 1914. This led to Austria-Hungary declaring war on Serbia, triggering a chain of events that escalated into World War I. We then studied the long-term causes known as MAIN, militarism, alliances, imperialism and nationalism, which created a volatile environment in Europe.
Militarism involved the build-up of military forces and the belief in military strength, with European powers engaging in an arms race, increasing their armies and navies, heightening tensions. Alliances were agreements between powers that created a web of commitments, drawing allies into conflict when one nation was threatened. Imperialism saw European powers competing for colonies, fueling rivalries, mistrust and tensions. Nationalism, or intense pride in one's nation, led to competition and sparked desires for independence among ethnic groups, increasing conflict.
In case study 1, the call to arms, we study propaganda information used to influence opinions or actions. We examined British recruitment posters that aimed to persuade young men to join the war effort, often using direct address emotive language and images. Phrases like, "Your country needs you," "Step into your place," and "Your chums are fighting, why aren't you?" were designed to manipulate feelings and encourage enlistment.
Many soldiers saw these posters and saw glory. They saw the call to arms as the chance to prove their loyalty to their country, and they were willing to enlist because of their patriotism, a love and pride in their countries. Others saw them as enlisted, as they believed that they were going to war would be an adventure or an escape from the dire poverty they endured in industrial Britain.
Often young men would be encouraged by people they trusted, such as their parents, teachers, and even the local clergy. Young men who did not sign up were often treated badly and faced abuse from people in their hometowns. Patriotic women and young girls would sometimes force white feathers into the hands of those who they viewed as cowardly for not enlisting.
These posters primarily started being used around 1915 in both Britain and its colonised countries, when the army was depleted to such a point that the nation was under threat. As you saw at the start of our presentation, we used propaganda posters as inspiration for our freeze frames when performing Who's for the Game. In art, we looked at the artists Paul Nash and C.R.W. Nevison. We compared and contrasted their experiences, views on war, and the messages that their paintings portrayed. Paul Nash loved nature and was horrified by the violent destruction of beautiful countryside by the war. In contrast, Nevison's paintings glorified war and influenced people to sign up, even though he never himself served on the front line and did not show integrity. We painted carrier pigeons and have also been doing 3D designs of planes. These are some of our paintings.
In Act 1, Scene 11 of White Poppies, we meet the 1915 Byford community, led by Lord Fordham. Matty, 18, is newly married with a baby on the way, while his childhood friend Tom, 16, is eligible for enlistment. The local vicar uses his sermon to urge young men to join the British Army. Though Matty isn't old enough, he still is given a white feather, a symbol of shame and used to pressure men into enlisting, implying cowardice for not joining.
I would like to draw the attention of the congregation to the fact that a recruiting station in Lakely will be open every day this week, from 10 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. If any young man in the congregation should do his duty by his country, he has the opportunity. there may be no others.
Matty Clark.
Now what does she want?
Ignore them.
Matty Clark. Matty Clark, best boy.
What do you want then, Lizzie Palmer?
Isn't it time we joined in, Matty Clark? Couldn't we need you?
The cheek of it. Get on your way then, both of you. Go
Don't
on.
take it on, Hannah. I'll sort it out myself.
With this, Matty.
You don't know what you're talking about. If you're so brave, why don't you go be nurses and clean up all the blood?
Mine's as brave as anything. Just the other day, he stayed down with John Watson when a prop collapsed. John got his leg hurt and the whole section could have come down on both of them.
Says you.
Nonsense, yeah. I'll not be made of a fool by two lasses that I'm they were born with. Take the beating thing yourself unless you've got the guts to join up.
You made up your mind yet, Matty?
I know you won't like it, lass, but I'm off to Lakely in the morning with a whole bunch of us going together. If there's tunneling work to be done in France, we'll need us miners. What will we doing? It's not much different here. We'll be underground.
Patriotism is a deep love and loyalty for one's country, including pride in its history and a willingness to defend it. We studied an extract from Shakespeare at Henry V, where the king delivers a rousing speech before battle. Analysing this helped us understand patriotism, a key factor in encouraging men to enlist in World War I.
Henry's speech uses direct address and emotive language such as "Dear friends" and "You noblest English" to emphasise equality and patriotism, urging his men to fight alongside him. This relates to World War I propaganda, where posters like Lord Kitchener's "Your country needs you" made young men feel valued and inspired them to enlist, believing that they were joining a respected leader in war.
In all of our case studies, we were considered the unheard voices of World War I. In Case Study 1, we focused on the voices of those underage young men who felt compelled to join the war effort, along with those who were left behind, such as siblings and parents. My piece of creating writing is from the perspective of a proud but concerned mother of a patriotic underage boy. It was a warm Wednesday afternoon when my son had told me he had signed up to go to war. "Mother, I must go. Our nation calls and I cannot turn away," he declared. I was proud, of course, but torn at the fact that my only son would soon leave my life to fight for his country. Soul-crushing feelings wrapped around me like a snake, suffocating me. He had been in my life so long, but not long enough. He was only 17 years old, and the age requirement was 19. War's shadow crept closer, threatening to take my son away into the dark sea of battle. He had packed his bags, leaving his childhood behind. When I looked at him, I did not see my son, but a man pulsing with patriotism, ready to fight for his country. Later in the afternoon, I went for a walk to clear my mind. As I was walking, I saw a propaganda poster saying, "Your chums are fighting, why aren't you?" Just then I realised that it was this that was making underage boys like my son feel compelled to sign up and leave their homes.
My piece of creative writing is from the call to arms I wrote in persona as a young lad of 14 who lied about his age to join up to war. This is an extract from the beginning of my writing, which shows just how patriotic young men were influenced by the government's propaganda posters in fear of being labelled as cowards. Today when I woke up, I felt compelled to sign up. Stumbling past the houses in my street, nervousness wrapped itself around me, making me feel like I could drop dead at any second. Next I knew, the recruitment office was in front of me, its piercing eyes staring at me like a tiger on its prey. Propaganda posters lingering around every corner, with bold lettering spelling out, "Your chums are fighting, why aren't you?" I felt my palms getting sweaty, but I kept moving forward. Once I stepped in, a tense atmosphere dawned upon me. I walked up to the desk and a recruitment officer was there, waiting, staring, his electric blue eyes watching as I signed up. Posters hung with the messages, "Strictly no one under the age of 19 is allowed to join war." I was immediately measured and I was 50 centimetres under the height requirement. I held my breath, but the officer turned a blind eye.
For my piece of writing, I wrote in the persona of a terrier. I was leaving the blissful life I had on the farm and heading off to France, following my owners to try and rid the trenches of the rats that blighted the rest of the weary soldiers. When not on the fox hunt, me and my mates would chase and catch the rats in the hay barn. As soon as they saw us, they stood no chance. Old men would shout, "Get those pesky rats away, they're having a bloody party in there." I was always excited when they opened the door of the barn to let me in, the rats slinking away in vain. I can only dream of those days now, utter bliss. It's very different now. I was only 3 when 15-year-old Jim left. I wasn't quite sure what he meant by going to be a hero when he ruffled my fur and set off on his adventure. I didn't think I'd find myself following him, but I knew it upset Miss Oakley, sniffing and whimpering as he set off with me close behind. Little did I know I'd be taking the long road out of my familiar surroundings forever.
In Act 1, Scene 13 and 14, Matty decides to enlist and his 16-year-old friend Tom plans to lie about his age to join as well. The scene takes place inside and outside the recruiting office, showing the experience of signing up and why many underage men were recruited.
Next, name, Matthew Donklow. Age, 19 years, 11 months. Occupation, minor. Married? Yes. Have you ever served in the armed forces before? No. Right, lad, we'll check your height and chest measurements. Let the doctor look you over. Next, name,
Thomas Edward Hedley.
age,
I'll be 19 next Sunday.
occupation,
Minor.
married.
No.
Have you ever served in the armed forces before?
No.
I bet you haven't. All go on with you. See the doctor.
Tom Henley, isn't it? Man, you've grown. Well, that seems fine. Can you read that sign over there?
2nd Battalion, New Division.
Well, that seems all fine.
We've a lot to get through. Just meet us car together, lads.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful to His Majesty King George V. I will defend His Majesty, his heirs and successors in person against all enemies according to the conditions of my service.
Sign here, please. I'll get your money and the rest of your orders.
Please say didn't pass, sir.
I've just done his medicals.
Please say didn't pass.
I had to pass them. A1. Rapidly, Harry.
Oh, what's A1, sir?
Means the fine upstanding lad. I had height, chest measurements and so on. In my opinion, he ought to be thinking twice about throwing himself away in France.
Please can't you just go back in there and tell him he's too young? I know I want to go and fight and I'm so proud of him, but there's something I can bear him being gone. And I don't really know what this has to do with it anyways, even though he's trying to explain it over and over again.
It's not my job to tell him anything, I'm afraid. And he's always taking the king's shilling. It really is too late.
During World War I, the vast British Empire relied on its colonies, dominions and protectorates. In Case Study 2, The Call of the Motherland, we learned how soldiers from India, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Zimbabwe and West Indies joined the war effort strengthening British forces.
Britain's colonies sent over 2.5 million men to fight, with India contributing the most. Studying the British Indian Army, especially Sikh soldiers, highlighted overlooked voices of World War I. The Empire brought Britain wealth, power and influence, though this is often forgotten.
As the world's largest empire, Britain was the first to industrialise. In our expedition, A Whole New World, last term we learned how its coal and metal resources boost trade and power with wealth, a strong navy and control over 65 countries. 1.5 billion people, Britain joined the Triple Entente with France and Russia to defeat the Triple Alliance.
The Commonwealth War Grave Commission maintains war graves worldwide as World War I soldiers were buried where they fell. Britain chose not to repatriate the fallen, instead creating military cemeteries to commemorate them. The Commonwealth War Graves Commission preserved these sites to honour the sacrifices, linking to our guiding question, why is it important to honour all of those who sacrificed in World War I?
We worked with Elizabeth Smith, a historian from the CWGC, who
came into school to teach us how to recognise our Commonwealth war grave, and then accompanied us down to St Mary's Church and graveyard so we could find out more about the field who are honoured there.
In computer science, we looked at the Commonwealth War Graves Commission records of all the people whose deaths were recorded, and we interrogated this data using Google Sheets. We then turned this data into maps to show how truly global a war this was, and how soldiers from India are not often talked about in the Gallipoli campaign.
In Act 2, Scene 5, we see Matty and Tom arrive at the bunker in France. They find out that they are going to be commanded by Lord Foreham's son, Will.
Right, lads, here you are. Not much fewer 20 of you in here. You'll soon feel like home. I'll be warning you up and ready for action in the morning.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Understand you Second Lieutenant Fordham back home?
Yes, sir.
Just remember, he said to you, wherever you all go after you back home, or nighty night.
Nighty night. I mean, good night, sir.
You lads, sir, sinking all.
Matty, watch your master, Will. This is never. Tom Headley. This is. Well, I'll be damned no this splendid.
What's it like, your master? Well, I mean, sir.
Not bad at all. Not like it is at the front anyway. So what's to be done? So far it's been keeping things safe on the ground and placing all the explosives.
What about the food?
Make sure to make them to send you sugar, tea, condensed milk, and if you got that with some bread, you're a millionaire. Right, lads, I better go off, get some charge or something. And remember, when anyone else is listening, I'm sir to you.
Yes, sir.
Act 2, Scene 8 is a pivotal scene in White Poppies. Tom, Matty and Will have been assigned to the listening post while the rest of their company lay explosives beneath a much contested hill on the front line. The scene finds Tom and Matty beneath the hill, listening to their German counterparts a few feet away. Will, meanwhile, is trying to summon up the courage to face his fears.
They're this near.
Just stay there, Jenny.
Right, Will Foreham, Great Britain. When the war's over, just go back to camp. Just think, I'll be part of history. Just gotta get on with it. Right, which I know. Oh God, lads!
All right, sir.
Shh, listen.
What?
Jerry stopped.
I'll report back.
No!
Sir?
Joe, here you. The whole section's in here. Use the phone.
Line's cut, sir. You told us.
I've got to warn the others.
No!
Belt him, Tom. Shut him up.
Sorry, Will, sir.
Now go! Go!
Captain Knox. Captain Knox.
While studying soldiers from the Empire, we learned about diverse beliefs, particularly the bravery of Sikh soldiers from Punjab in World War I. Germans admired their discipline and courage, calling them lions or black lions. We studied the religion Sikhi in depth, founded by Guru Nanak in the 15th century, and connecting its teaching to the bravery of Sikh soldiers in battle.
We are extremely fortunate to have Raf Singh give up his time to have a Google Meet session with us. Raf is an expert on the contribution of Sikh soldiers during World War I and is the founder of A Little History of Sikhs. On the official website of The Little History of Sikhs is a quote which says, "The past is always alive if it is remembered. Knowledge has life and power. As long as that is saved from human forgetfulness," which links well with our guiding question. Rav helped us understand the contribution of Sikh soldiers in World War I and how his organisation works hard to ensure that those who served get the recognition they deserve, which links directly to our guiding question: why should we honour those who sacrificed during the World War I?
Rav explained that Sikh soldiers wore turbans instead of helmets as part of their faith. The British Army provided them with small Guru Granth Sahib scriptures and set up makeshift gurdwaras for worship. Recognising the importance of faith in morale, after Rav's visit, we carried out a fieldwork visit to the Gurdwara Singh Sabhab in Newcastle.
A Gurdwara is a sacred place for Sikhs to pray, read their holy books and share the meals in the langar hall. During our visit, we removed our shoes, washed our hands and covered our heads as a sign of respect. Jaswinder guided us through the Divan Hall, where we meditated and played Indian musical instruments.
Some students went to the Langer Hall kitchen and spent their time helping prepare a traditional vegetarian Indian food to be served free of charge to anyone who comes into the Gurdwara hungry. This was an act of sewa, selfless service, which is extremely important to Sikhs. Sikhs volunteer in the Langer Hall, practicing sewa as an important part of their faith. We all then sat on the floor to enjoy our food, which is a symbol of equality, as taught by the Guru Nanak, the founder of the faith. To express our gratitude for the delicious meal served to us, we helped clean up. It was rewarding to support their community just as they had supported ours.
In my piece of creation writing, I wrote in the persona of an underage boy who had been excited about signing up to join the war and even had the blessing of his patriotic parents. This is an extract from the beginning of my piece, which shows the patriotic nature of young men and the desperate situation in the hostile terrain of the battlefield. After what felt like hours of scrutiny, I had finally signed up. A wave of relief washed over me as I was no longer afraid of judgment or being seen as a coward. Just a week later, the train to France had arrived, and with it, the honour of fighting for my country as a hero. With full commitment, I bid farewell to my proud mother and father, vowing never to surrender, no matter what. My heart pounded as fast as the train's engine as I clung to my sense of heroism. 2 months later, amidst the ferocious bombardment of the enemy, I was injured. Yet my loyalty to my country had earned me the respect of my comrades. After successful recovery in the field hospital, I gathered every ounce of strength and energy within me, driven by an unshakable desire for victory, and returned to the trenches. We were determined to win, but one by one we fell. Just when we thought the end was near, when only 1,000 of us remained, brave Sikh reinforcements arrived. Warriors from the Punjab, reigniting our hope.
In the story Storming a Tea Shop from our anchor text War Girls, we learned that the army had conscripted people's carrier pigeons to support the war effort on the front lines. We learned a little more about the role of these carrier pigeons and painted our own in art. The following is an extract from my career of writer as a carrier pigeon in the trenches. As I fly over the trenches, I see soldiers with all moods, depressed, heartbroken, sad. Others are aggressive, patriotic, mad and ready to fight. It is sad carrying messages from soldiers to relatives saying, I will promise I will come back in one piece, or I don't know when this tragic war will end. I sometimes see the enemies getting prepared to strike to the British soldiers. Sometimes I'm welcome distraction. I see them lose focus on their bloody task and focus on me. I have just been shot in my stomach, wings, feet and legs. My eyes are droopy and I don't know how long I have left. I am in severe pain and don't know if I'm going to survive.
3 weeks after the disaster beneath the hill, Tom has been charged with desertion, striking an officer and betraying his company's position to the enemy. Act 2, Scene 10 shows us how the evidence against him piles up during the court-martial.
Private Thomas Edward Headley, the charge against you is that on the 28th May 1915, you did willfully strike a superior officer with the express purpose of deserting your post, thereby creating a disturbance which betrayed the position of said company, in which all members of said company perished, with the exception of yourself and Lieutenant Fordham, the said officer. What do you plead? Did you strike Lieutenant Fordham?
Yes, sir,
I would now like to call upon Captain Rupert Knox. Captain Knox, did you see Private Headley strike Lieutenant Fordham?
After the explosion, I found the two men, Private Headley and Lieutenant Fortime, lying on the ground. Private Headley appeared to be unconscious, and Lieutenant Fortime appeared to be in pretty poor shape. All that he could tell me was that he had been struck and his forehead appeared to be bleeding.
Thank you. I would now like to call upon the medical orderlies who attended Lieutenant Fordham at the dressing station.
I examined Lieutenant Fordham and his admits, as well as the considerable damage done to his leg. He appeared to be struck on the head. The marks of this injury was consistent with a blow dealt by a fist.
Is Lieutenant Fordham able to give evidence?
No, sir. He suffered an amputation to his right leg. He's in poor shape.
Private Headley, this court-martial is at an end. You will be informed of your sentence within the next 28 days.
Act 2, Scene 12, and we are back in Byford. On the front line, Tom has been found guilty of striking a superior officer and has been shot. The village of Byford does not know this yet, but is reeling from the news of the deaths of all its young men. Everyone in the village seems to have been affected.
Have you heard?
Did you see?
They're bringing telegrams.
My Uncle Harry?
All of them killed. All the Byford lads wiped out together.
Mum won't stop crying, opening the church and bringing flowers.
But you have
Jack Ellis down the lane.
not him from the hall.
They say he's lost a leg.
Everyone asks Matty Clark too.
Matty Clark, maybe she knows.
Madam, it is my painful duty to inform you that a report this day has been received from the War Office notifying the death of number 2575, Private M.J. Clark, which occurred abroad, locality not stated, on the 20th of May 1915, and I am to express to you the sympathy and regret of the War Army Council at your loss. The cause of death is a killing action.
This isn't happening. He didn't even see the baby. He didn't see our little boy.
World War I strategy of attrition, combined with the stalemate of trench warfare, led to immense suffering and loss. An armistice was signed between the Allies and Germany, effective at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, marking the end of the war. Our third case study, the Call Home, focused on post-war soldiers returning home, including those who survived, out of the 800,000 killed from Britain and its colonies.
Though World War I ended, Britain faced high unemployment, poverty and race riots. We learn from Rav about India's hope for Dominion status to manage its affair, a just reward for the sacrifices of the British Indian Army, particularly the Sikhs. However, Britain denied the request, banning public meetings and declaring martial law. On April 13th, 1919, a peaceful gathering of 15,000 to 20,000 people at Jallianwala Bagh in Amritsar was fired upon by British troops under Colonel Dyer, killing 379. This event, linked to our guiding question, highlighted the failure to honour those sacrifices of those who fought for Britain.
After World War I, widespread poverty and high unemployment led to violent riots in several British cities in 1919, with anger directed at black and minority ethnic communities blamed for job shortages. One victim was Charles Wooten, a 24-year-old sailor from Bermuda, who was murdered by a mob in Liverpool. Despite his sacrifice during the war, no one was arrested for his death. The 1919 race riots, a tragic result of post-war struggles, remain a shameful chapter in history. The government's response was to repatriate colonial workers to their homelands.
The war had a significant impact on women, who took the men's jobs while also carrying their families. Despite their hard work, after the war, women were paid less than men for the same work, showing they were not honoured for the sacrifices. Additionally, many women were left single, unable to have the families they had hoped for due to the shortage of men.
World War I profoundly affected soldiers, causing trauma that led to shell shock, now recognised as PTSD. Exposed to artillery, trench warfare and battlefield horrors, soldiers often experience anxiety, flashbacks, nightmares and emotional numbness. At the time, shell shock was poorly understood and mental health support was lacking.
Tragically, some soldiers suffering from shell shock were accused of desertion or cowardice when they were unable to continue fighting or follow orders. Military authorities, under pressure to maintain discipline and keep up morale, some resorted to harsh punishments, which could even include execution for those judged to have failed in their duty.
To understand the grief families in colonial countries felt upon receiving death telegrams, we analysed the powerful poem Her Silent Wake by Malika Booker, a black British poet of Grenadian heritage. The poem uses vivid imagery to depict a mother so distraught by her loss that she inflicts physical pain to cope with her emotion and anguish. We would like to share an excerpt from it now.
Him dead, I red my red cotton dress, beat my breast bloody. Sewed coarse rice sack dresses, the grate my skin raw, rubbed ashes from raging in my sobbing skin. Unlike Jacob, my son is dead.
O son, who bathe your carcass down there a foreign, who fling white rum pon the ground. Son, I have no language for this loss.
Him dead, I turn over your mattress, line up your slippers and one dress shoe, rearrange your furniture, and find I care nothing but terms like deserter or coward. You are my son. What title can belittle my son?
O son, who pelt down dominoes down there a foreign, who keep vigil over your body all night. Son, I have no language for your loss.
Him dead, I yank out my cornrows, turn my hair up savage tugs, and pulls until it turn a matted bush, a hive for bees, a fat succulent ones, ruled by a king called George. The day I whisper your death news to the bees, I broke their king's back.
O son, who stop the clocks down there a foreign, who sing Sankey and read scripture. Son, I have no language for this loss.
Him dead, I covered the mirrors, sipped the cocoa tea, watching the breadfruit tree where your navel strings was buried, and I feel to take an axe, chop, 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 when I think about how they take you whole and send you back an ink name on paper.
In the run-up to Act 2, scenes 17 and 18, we see the fallout of the news that Tom Headley supposedly caused the death of his Byford company. Villagers have turned against Tom's loved ones who have fled the village. However, in this scene, Dr. Lindsay is doing a checkup on Will Fordham. When Will confesses his actions on that fateful day in the tunnel, Tom's family have to make a decision. Do they reveal the truth to the village?
That stump of yours seems to have healed nicely. How to take it easy, influenza is not something to be trifled with. Eat plenty and build up your strength.
What for? Sorry, it's not your fault.
It's hardly yours, lad.
Yes, I think it is.
I've heard the reports, massive explosions. You didn't stand a chance. Bye, lad, I'll see you tomorrow.
Doctor, it is my fault. Not just the leg, I mean C Company. I've got to tell you something. What really happened.
Take your time slowly, lad.
I did try. I was a decent officer, but deep down I was always terrified. We could hear them out in no man's land. And all the men looked at me to make it all right, but I couldn't. Matty Clark, Tom Headley, two of the best lads I've ever met. Tom Headley, it wasn't his fault he struck me, it was mine. I was out for the camp for days. I didn't know about the charge against Tom until I got back to England. I certainly didn't hear about the execution. Please believe me.
So it wasn't Tom's fault? No, but I couldn't tell you until poor Will had died.
But why didn't Tom tell the truth?
Will was his friend. It would be like telling tales.
This was life or death.
He didn't know Tom had been charged. I think I feel sorry for Will. Look, I've got a plan.
No, Dr. Lindsay. Tom is at peace and we know the truth in our heart. That's enough. What do you think, Jenny?
I'd love for that Polly and Lizzie to know the truth, but Mrs. Headley is right. Let's leave things as they are.
Some people chose to write from the perspective of a young soldier deep within the trenches of World War I. Their voices were rarely heard as their youth and inexperience meant they were often one of the silent, deadly casualties. The trip over to France was only an hour, although it felt like an eternity. But in no time we were off to battle. All of a sudden, a barrage of bullets swarmed over us. Grenades came at us like shooting stars as duck was barked by my superior officer, and one by one my newly found comrades dead as their blood gushed everywhere as people turned pale with true fear. The walls were painted in blood like one of Pablo Picasso's works. The odour reeked of death, leaving a sharp smell in our noses. In the end, the battle was won. But at what cost? Death echoed through the cracks of the trenches like cracks that had begun to form in my faith of my country. The wind was sharp as ever, carrying on the lost souls of war. The sky had a grim colour as the sun came down.
Some people chose to write a creative piece from an unheard voice of World War I to fit in with K33, the call home. My creative piece was written in a persona as a grieving mother who was desperately mourning the loss of her son. My son, I cannot cope with your loss. I have no words to describe the pain that has been forced onto me. War brought me here by allies. This was never supposed to happen. This was not your fate. My son, my world, my life. I walked past your room, but nothing but your clothes lay there, not you. Oh, son, where have you gone? God has taken you now, his angels too. May you rest, son. This was never your problem. Rations are spare without you here. This morning, I was expected to be greeted by a warm embrace of you, my son. Instead, there lay a coin with living Britannia and her fierce lion. Yet not you, my beloved son. I was greeted with George R. signature on the letter, not yours. A Newcastle symbol, not a doodle of you. Yet awaiting was a paragraph thanking me for my sacrifice, your sacrifice, not a letter you wrote to me.
My creative piece was about a soldier returning home after war. He is so traumatised by the horrors of war that, despite his excitement to see his family, he's worried he won't be able to shake off the horrors of what he has seen. The salt-laden breeze whipped against my bruised and battered face. The bandage on my splintered hand twisted from loading another dozen of machinery off the boat onto the pier. I limped over to the edge of the boat, gripping onto the sides. I overlooked the horizon, breathing in the salty aroma of the crashing waves hitting against the rocks. The captain raised the sail and tied the rope around a piece of wood, and the army officers pushed the boat away. The waves lashed against the wooden sides of the boat, leaving flashbacks of the venom of horror from soldiers struggling to run but being blown up into dust. The dried mud on my hands lingered in my brain as I recalled the thick mud which hung from my boots as I trudged through the deep depths of the trenches where I stood shoulder to shoulder with men whose limb hung from their body.
We learned how to mix secondary and tertiary colours using primary colours. We also learned to create shades and tints and how to apply paint in layers. Using this knowledge, we painted pigeon artwork.
These were inspired by Cher Army, a human pigeon who saved 194 soldiers during an attack. Despite being shot and severely wounded, Cher Army flew 25 miles through enemy fire to deliver an important message. We honour his memory through our paintings.
In the final act of White Poppies, Jenny Clark discovers a document clearing Tom Headley's name. She still has her Remembrance Day servants to present, though, and it could be the day Tom is honoured with the other fallen soldiers from Byford. In the Act 2, Scene 20, the two eras merged for a powerful conclusion. We replace most of the fallen soldiers' names who those of real World War I soldiers chose after our work with the Commonwealth War Graves Commission.
Today, it's 11th of November. It's a very special Remembrance Day. Some of our students have been looking back at their great-grandparents who took part in the Great War between 1914 and 1918.
45 men at Byford died as a result of that war. 20 of them were killed one day in France. Near the school gate and a memorial, their names are inscribed. The name Tom Headley is not on that memorial. Today we want to set the record straight.
Tom Headley, who was only 17 years old, they thought he was a coward and they had shot him. But we found out what really happened. In spite of everything that was said about him, he was a very, very brave soldier.
Sometimes in the summer, at dawn or just before, about when it must have happened, I can't sleep. I get out of bed, throw a few clothes on and go out down the lane for some air. Sometimes there's a faintest smell of all the wonderful things that would have happened for me and Tom if he had still been here. All the good things that happen, I tell him all about them. I have to do the living for both of us now.
They shall not grow old, as that we have to grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn them. At the golden sun and in the morning, we remember them.
Matthew John Clark. Edward Herbert Watkins.
Harold Wood.
Lawrence Town.
Ronald James White.
William Casey.
Alexander Casey.
Joseph George Robson.
Christopher Hodge. Albert Garrick. Thomas Edward Headley.
For our final product, we will be recording each other reading out extracts from our creative writing pieces from across the case studies. These recordings will be put together in the format of a World War I radio broadcast, which will be played on Memory Lane Radio on Remembrance Sunday in November. By creating this broadcast, we are honouring unheard voices from World War I that we have told you about this evening. When we consider our guiding question for the final time, why should we honour all those who sacrificed during World War I? The answer, put simply, is because all who sacrificed did so selflessly and deserve to be remembered.